Yesterday morning, we had our Wednesday morning prayer at 6 in the morning, and we've been doing it the last few weeks on Zoom. We've gone from 3 or 4 to 6 or 7 this week. And by the way, if you're one of the men of Port City and you don't go to work till 7, I encourage you to get a hold of Toby and find out how you can join the prayer time on Wednesday morning from 6 to 6:45. And I promise you that if you take the time to get up and put a shirt on and join us on Zoom, that over time it'll be a life-changing experience as men pray together. But anyway, I was sharing with them some thoughts from Psalms 136. And there's 26 verses in Psalms 136. And I'm going to read you verse 1. Verse 1 says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his, God's, steadfast love endures forever." And after every verse, at the end of every verse, for 26 verses, the psalmist says, "For his, God's, steadfast love endures forever." And I think that's something that we need to kind of sear in our brains, because even later on in the chapter 136, he's talking about the hardships that Israel had gone through, how God delivered them from those hardships. But he keeps ending with, "For his steadfast love endures forever." And something I think we need to keep at the forefront of our minds is his steadfast love endures forever. And his steadfast love is not contingent on our circumstances, but his steadfast love is just contingent on his word. And he has never gone back on his word. And so I love how the psalmist 26 times tells us, "For his steadfast love endures forever," because we need to hear it 26 times in order to remember that his steadfast love endures forever. With that in mind, we just want to update you guys on what's going on in the life of Port City. As you guys know, we are going through unforeseen circumstances. None of us could have predicted this time last year that in 2020 our economy would be shutting down and we would be surviving a pandemic. Right? This was not the way that we expected to kick off a new decade in this century. However, it is our reality. It is where we are, and it is what we are facing. And so when we first started this, many of us were unsure. And as Randy Davis, the president of the Tennessee Mission Board, said, many of us expected a sprint. Many of us went into this expecting a 5K, but what we're figuring out is that it's a marathon. And so we had decided a few weeks ago that every Thursday I would give kind of a 2-week update. However, I'm going to give us a 30-day update on where we're going to be throughout the month of April. So for the month of April, I want you and I to go ahead and plan on being online and not physically gathered in our building. And one of the reasons I want to go ahead and start projecting further out is because what I'm afraid of is that if we keep thinking of it and we keep talking about it in terms of a 5K or a sprint, it'll be easy for us to kind of sit back and hit the pause button on ministry, to hit the pause button on what God has called us to be and do. And the one thing I do not want us to do is to hit the pause button. This is a time to move forward. This is a time to advance, not a time to retreat. So based on the recommendations of our governor and the president and many other sources, we are going to say that for the month of April, we are going to be online. And what I want to invite you to do is to pray, to earnestly pray that maybe, just maybe, we could gather back together on Mother's Day and celebrate mothers and celebrate victory over this COVID-19 situation. In the meantime, while we run this marathon, right, we're no longer a 5K, we're talking about miles. So as we run these miles, I want to encourage you to pray. Pray for one another, pray for your church, pray for your country. I want to invite you to dig deeper into loving God and to knowing who He is, and also to loving others the way the scriptures call us to love others. So here's the thing. Here's the crux of it all. I was talking with Adria Dickens, our family minister, and we were talking about how we didn't want to retreat. how we didn't want to just go back to normal. And through the conversation, she said, you know what? I've got a hashtag back to better. And that's what we want our goal to be. We don't want to go back to normal when this is over. We want to go back to better. We want to be a better church. We want to be more mature followers of Jesus. We want to have a large baptism service at the end of this because of the people that were reached with the gospel throughout this time. We want to come through this, as much as it depends on us, moving forward and advancing the gospel of Jesus. This is not a time for us, for you, or for I as individuals or as a church to retreat to the trenches. This is a time where the warriors of Christ are identified, because when we hear the fighting, we hear the trouble, we see the tragedy, we see the difficulty, we see the obstacles, let us run towards it in faith, and let us run towards the battle and achieve what Christ has called us to be. So here's something what I want to invite us to do over the next few weeks, if you don't mind giving me just a couple of more minutes. First of all, we're going to gather online. And what I want you to commit to do is to not forsake the assembling of ourselves online. Don't use that it's online and I can watch it whenever as an excuse to not gather. There is value in us doing it together, and value in us commenting and sharing thoughts and encouraging one another. So let's gather online faithfully throughout this season. Really, it should be the most faithful church attendance you've had in years, because there's nowhere else to go, right? So gather online. Secondly, that we're going to grow in our grow groups. I know some of you don't like technology and you don't want to deal with it. It's a hassle. And that's okay if we're talking about a week or two. But if we're talking about 4+ weeks, you do not want to be that disconnected from the body of Christ. Find somebody that can help you, coach you through it, figure it out, learn how to get on Zoom, learn how to get on Facebook groups, and get plugged in to your group or to a group. If you're not plugged into one, let us know. We'll get you plugged in. And I know some of you are against Facebook, and maybe you've had trouble with Facebook, or it got you into trouble. I want to suggest that maybe for a season, you open up Facebook and you just like Port City and the people of your group, because it's a great tool during this season for us to stay informed. Number 3, that you decide to give. That you decide to give, not just give, but give generously. Here's the reason why. Some of our members have already lost their jobs. And in the next weeks to come, they're going to be struggling with figuring out how to pay for rent, how to pay their mortgage, how to buy food, and so forth. And we don't want to have to retreat back. We want to advance and be able to help take care of our own. Not only do we want to take care of the people here and some of our members, but we want to help those in the community who have genuine needs. We want to be there to help serve them and lift them up. And we can only do that is if the body of Christ, you and me as Port City, give generously where we can. Right? I'm not saying if you can't, I'm not saying if you lost your job, I'm saying if you can, to give generously. One of the things that my wife and I are going to try to do for the next few weeks is we're going to try to double give. In other words, I understand that there's some people in our church who are not going to be able to give what they normally give. So we're going to try to double up on our giving so that we can help cover some of those who generally would give. And that way we are in a position to do more as a church for our community, and by result advance further the gospel of Jesus Christ. And last but not least, we want to advance and go. We don't want to stop going. So here's what I want you to do with Go. Invite people to the online service. Invite people, say, join us, and we can chat on Facebook as we go along. We can chat on the online campus as we go. Help us be in a position. Here in a few days, we're probably going to release a list of grocery items for the food pantry. Get involved. If you can give of those things, give of those things. We're going to be doing some deliveries for the school in the weeks to come. Sign up for that if you're physically able and not at risk. Kidstown is doing a great job at going. Help Leanne promote that throughout the city, because that's not just for our kids. So here's what we're going to do, is we are not, as Port City, we are not going to hold back. we're not going to hit the pause button on mission and ministry. As a matter of fact, our goal and our plan is to hit the accelerator and to accelerate forward for the glory of Jesus Christ. Why? Because His love endures forever. And no matter what we face and no matter what we come up against, the power of His love, the power of His resurrection working in us can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ever ask or think. So while at first you may go, oh, poor, it's so sad we're not meeting in April. I agree with you. It breaks my heart. But the moment you think that, lay it aside, take that thought captive, and then let's hit the accelerator together and be creative in accomplishing the mission of Jesus. We love you guys and look forward to the stories of victory that come out of this season of COVID-19 and this season in the life of our church. Thank you guys for all that you've done so far, for all that you're going to do. We'll talk to you soon. May God receive all the glory.